So hello everyone and welcome back to the Promotion on a Budget podcast. Today I'm joined with Josh as usual and a bit of surprise we've got Eden. Hello Eden, how are you today mate?
Oh, I'm brilliant. I'm happy to be here. I'm loving it.
He's just happy to
Can you
be
address
here.
him properly? Can you call him iPhone like he is meant to be called?
Oh yeah,
Yes, I am
he has put his
iPhone.
name on Zoom. He's now iPhone. But today, interesting podcast. There's three of us today. We were hoping that Lewis and our new social media manager Tom would join as well, but they are both currently occupied with other work stuff. However, today we've got a very, very interesting podcast. We'll be discussing the topics of Tony Pulis getting sacked from Sheffield Wednesday and where did they go from here? Or were they wrong to sack him? And then we talk about transfers as well. You know, a lot of Championship players rumoured to leave. Championship players have left as well. And then we're going to be talking about where the football should carry on as well. Because obviously coronavirus cases are rising and we are looking to be heading into another national lockdown. So should football carry on with the amount of games that are being postponed? Anyway, Josh, let's start on Tony Pulis. Was he wrong to be sacked?
It's a really, really strange one for me. He obviously was in charge for a matter of 45 days. Now, in that time, he has actually got some kind of notable results. But in the same respect, I think Sheffield Wednesday, in my opinion, have had a massive issue with player discipline so far this season. The amount of red cards that they've had across their games is quite frankly hampering their chances at getting out of the rut that they found themselves in when they initially suffered this points deduction. Now, when you look at this on the whole, there's obviously going to be more to what meets the eye with Tony Pulis. Obviously, he's a very, very good Championship manager. And he does the job that he is asked to do. And he did bring in a system at Sheffield Wednesday that ultimately got them results. So for me, I'm really confused by it all. And I've quite honestly not seen enough on it to really be able to make a judgment on whether it was the right call or the wrong call. Ultimately, I think sacking any manager after 45 days is probably the wrong call because any manager deserves more time to show their worth. But I don't think it's probably as it seems. I think there's something that will have happened. I don't know what you know on that, but there might be something that is not necessarily as commonly known.
I think there might be something behind the scenes going on at Sheffield Wednesday, but at the same time, if there's any manager that's going to get you out of the Championship or keep you in the Championship even, in Sheffield Wednesday's case, considering they started on a minus 12 point deduction, it's going to be Tony Pulis. He is one of the main men that will keep you in that division. And I think sacking him after 45 days is criminal because when Sheffield Wednesday came down to Norwich, you could see they came with a game plan and very almost grinded out a result. Luckily, Norwich were able to get a win that day. But however, you could see he's got a very, very good brand of football to keep teams in relegation battles in the Championship. So for me, there's got to be something else going behind the scenes because where I'm standing, I think it's wrong to sack him.
Yeah, any manager to go after 45 days, like I say, is not enough time for them to prove their worth. Looking at his record, he had 10 games in this 45 days. Obviously, this being kind of one of the busiest times in the Championship calendar. He won one of those games. Now, as we both know, Sheffield Wednesday their squad hasn't been doing the best as of late, let alone this season. This season, they really have struggled. Winning one game, drawing 4. So he's picked up 7 points out of a possible 30. Not great for starters, but obviously you would still normally expect a manager to be given longer to really imprint himself on a team, especially with now where we are with the January transfer window. He has enough contacts to players that he's played with in the past. Not players that he's played with, players that he's had play under him in the past, people that he has links with, people he has connections to that could have kept Sheffield in the league to allow them to then go and build next season. It's a confusing one, but like I've said at the same time, the squad found themselves really quite ill-disciplined, suffering a lot of red cards and a lot of yellow cards from the style they were playing. It was a very unattractive style of football, quite frankly. Sitting in a 5-4-1 in any kind of game is not something that people want to watch. Especially, no one wants to go and play against it.
Yeah,
I know we had a very frustrating game that I've watched at Reading when we played Sheffield Wednesday. We struggled, quite frankly.
Yeah, and so did Norwich as well.
They sat back, they defended, they drew the game. I don't think that it is necessarily right to sack a manager when he's not even had a transfer window. However, like I said, there's got to have been something that has gone wrong ultimately.
Yeah, I fully agree with this. But at the same time, like you say, he needed a transfer window to get under his belt, because you did see in the summer Sheffield Wednesday can bring in quality Championship players. I think we saw this with Callum Patterson, who, in a few seasons ago was in the Premier League, and he didn't look too out of place in that division either. They brought in Jack Marriott, I believe, as well. So there's players there with very good levels of quality. Obviously, Adam Reach has performed brilliantly in this division for God knows how many seasons now. So Sheffield Wednesday are, they are a good club, and a good club at this level, but it's just obviously the point deduction didn't help them. And I think behind the scenes of that club, it's very, very, very dodgy at the minute, and it's not really helping them in any sense on the pitch. But Eden, what is your take on the subject? Obviously, not the most knowledgeable with Championship football, but what is your take on it?
Actually, no. Well, give him some credit first of all. He's very used to watching his team play in the Championship.
That is very true.
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice to see Fulham even play. Obviously, the last 2 games have been postponed, so if they were in the Championship, I suppose it'd be better. I suppose.
But yeah, what's your take on the whole Sheffield Wednesday Tony Pulis sacking?
I kind of agree with what you were saying about saying it's criminal. He hasn't really had enough time to kind of really get his feet into it and kind of have his own kind of effect on the whole team. Like you said, it's not a long, only 45 days to do that. It's not enough time to kind of build anything from that.
Yeah, again, fully agree.
Like we said, it's a mess of a club at the moment, for one reason or another. But now that we've obviously spoken about him and his time at the club, since he's been sacked, Sheffield Wednesday have won both of their games.
But we've seen this with so many clubs though before. When they bring in a new manager, they win the game straight after. But winning, or winning 2 games. They've not
brought in a new manager though. This is their caretaker.
Well, getting sacked, I guess. I mean, we saw this at Hull when Steve Bruce left in the Premier League, and Mike Phelan, that's it. He took over. I think he beat Man United or Leicester or something, or somewhere along those lines. And he instantly got the job from there. But then they fell apart. I'm kind of. Maybe Tony Pulis didn't have a good relationship with the players. Obviously, you say this with the player discipline, with the amount of red cards they were getting. Maybe there wasn't a good relationship there. And now they're starting to perform better because he's left. Maybe he didn't have a good connection with the dressing room. But yeah, it's a very, very weird subject. I mean, personally, I think they were wrong to sack Pulis. I think giving him a bit more time, put his, his print at the club. I mean, look, we've seen the quality he can bring to the Championship, to Championship sides, and trying to even get him up to the Premier League. We saw this with Middlesbrough when they were in the playoff semi-final not too long ago. Obviously, he got sacked from there because this following season, I think they finished somewhere like 9th. But at the same time, he does bring... He's a good manager at this level, and he can get clubs to survive in this league or even challenge for promotion. So I think 45 days is not enough time to give a manager, to sack a manager. You've got to give him more time to obviously put his mark on a club. However, we'll now move on to our second subject, and this is a very, very big one with the current climate of the world at the minute. Obviously, coronavirus cases rapidly still rising in England, as pretty much everywhere is in tier 4, meaning, it's pretty much full lockdown near enough. And we're seeing a lot of games being postponed due to clubs having coronavirus cases. And this is not just League 1, League 2 games where you don't get weekly coronavirus testing. We're seeing Premier League games, Championship games get cancelled and get postponed due to clubs having coronavirus cases. Personally, I think we need a 4-week break from football. 2 weeks for players to self-isolate and make sure they don't have COVID. And then 2 weeks to get training and then bring football back. I think it's, football players, for me, they're humans. They're not robots. They're not machines. Yes, they get paid well, but they shouldn't be putting their health at risk to entertain people. I think, give them 2 weeks off to self-isolate, bring them 2 weeks back into training, and then, carry on with the season. I think that's needed just to start off fresh again, personally, because I think, like I say, players' welfare is a big matter, and it is very, very important. But yeah, what is your take on this, Josh?
It's a really interesting one for me. So obviously, I think paramount is health. That takes over everything. Now, we've seen I believe it was announced today, that they're actually introducing bi-weekly testing across the whole of the EFL, something they weren't doing before. Now you've got to look at not only the testing, but the amount of positive tests, the kind of contact. Obviously, when football first came back, players were in this kind of biosecure bubble, so to speak. They weren't really going out doing much else. They were kind of training, playing, seeing their family. Now you kind of had like some clubs have been banning their players from going to the shops.
There's been loads of articles as well about that, about like certain players obviously meeting up with other players for Christmas and New Year and things like that as well. Completely go like with no disregard, like complete disregard for everything that they're trying to do, for be like training in a safer environment.
Yeah, it kind of, as much as footballers will see it, like in some respects, this is a completely theoretical example, but if they've played against a certain player a couple of days before, they will have seen it as, oh, why can't we? But ultimately, they need to understand I'm not saying that the general public are good at sticking to coronavirus rules. They're breached every day, quite frankly. But the players are also getting to the point where they're breaching them a lot. And now you bring in the fact that you've got to start talking about them being role models. You've got to start to talk about the kind of impact that them like going out and doing what they want. Like Eden said, the complete and utter disregard for everything. You've got to look at the impact. I think 4 weeks will be too long for me. I think you need to look at the fact that ultimately, from the footballing perspective, this isn't how I view it. This is how they're going to look at it. They're going to look at it from a football perspective. Managers, players, clubs were already complaining about the fixture congestion over Christmas because obviously they've had to cram a bit more in the run from November to December. If you stop for 4 weeks, especially with the number of fixtures coming up over the next few weeks, FA Cup competitions are going to have to be rescheduled. You then look at a massive delay going into the summer. Then you're going to look at the Euros being in the summer again. Players won't get a break before next season. Then you go into 2022, you've got a Winter World Cup. I ultimately think from a health perspective, it needs to stop. But I can't see them having a way to be able to do it in an environment that is workable for everyone, that everyone will unanimously agree to, because ultimately they won't make a decision unless there is a unanimous agreement or unless the government step in and say, this is what you're doing if you're operating in this country.
Obviously, I've spoke about me wanting maybe 4 weeks for the players. And like you say, that's probably not mathematically possible with the amount of fixtures that are being played. But obviously, we can look at international breaks coming up. Obviously, we do have one in March. And I think maybe that international break does need to be just cancelled and give players that time to potentially self-isolate, take themselves away, put themselves in a bubble or an isolation, kind of just stop football for a bit. Whether coronavirus is recovered by then or not, whether we're in a better situation with the vaccine that's now been released, we won't know. But I think obviously that may be the only time that we can see a possible break for footballers and looking after their welfare. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting subject, and there's so many different talking points about it. Does football just carry on? Footballers do mix people. They've got families at home, they've got kids. You've got to take that into perspective. Kids go to school. Schools are currently still open, until Boris announces a national lockdown. At the time of recording this, it could be in 25 minutes time. But currently schools are still open. Those kids go to school, those kids pass it on to someone else. And that's where that whole chain reaction starts. So it's just putting that into perspective. Would it be safer to just give it 2 weeks to kind of a player to self-isolate and kind of recover? Or yeah, it's a very interesting subject.
Yeah, it's a really strange one, and I mean, it's an opinionated stance ultimately until someone brings in legislation or puts their foot down. It's an opinionated stance, and everyone's going to differ on what should be done. But ultimately, like you've outlined, I think health should be put first. Eden, is there anything you've got to add to kind of, obviously
Yeah,
you
I
have
think
the
that
experience of games being cancelled for your team. Reading haven't had any games cancelled as of yet, saying that Luton have announced cases and we're meant to be playing them in the FA Cup this weekend. So touch wood, everything is safe. And obviously, I think just it goes without saying, we obviously hope everyone that is being affected by these outbreaks is obviously as safe as possible.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, because obviously it's gutting not being able to like watch the games. They keep on getting postponed, but then at the end of the day, you've got to make sure everyone's fit and healthy. And then, like you said, you can somehow get to some way of completing the season. Obviously, I think you're both correct. You need some kind of break, just so people can like isolate, get tested, make sure they're fit and healthy. But it's just really like doing it in the right manner, and obviously being able to not have so much congestion with all the games. Because, like you said, it's not fair on the players either, because it's putting more stress on them. Just trying to get through it the best way possible, as methodical as you can. Obviously, I think like if we do go into a national lockdown, then it shouldn't like just be like the average Joe. It should be like everything as well. If football, everything will need to be locked down, but maybe not football as long. And make sure they kind of, I don't know, try and set up something to make it, I don't know, as safe as possible. I know they've kind of got all of those things, like all the guidelines and everything at the moment, but obviously something just seems to not be working. So,
yeah, definitely, it's a very interesting subject. Obviously, we've seen, some people aren't a lot of people in the UK aren't actually keeping to the guidelines. The tier 4 ones. I think we've seen throughout social media so many New Year's Eve parties going on. And it doesn't help the cause, I guess. And even we've seen with footballers, I know there's Tottenham and West Ham players mixing at Christmas. A group of 15 of them. Also, the Tottenham West Ham players are playing in London, which is tier 4. So again, not sticking to the rules. However, yeah, you've got to just hope that everyone keeps safe. All the viewers, I hope you're all keeping safe and all keeping well. And hopefully we're out of this shit soon. But yeah, we'll move on to the next subject. Which is transfers. And I think the two big talking points are mine and Josh's clubs between Norwich and Reading transfers. Obviously, Norwich have Emi Buendia hugely linked with a move to Arsenal. Max Aaron's being linked to move to Manchester United. But it has come out today that Daniel Farke has said, it's also been released by Sky Sports, that Todd Cantwell, Max Aarons, and Emi Buendia will not be sold this window, which is brilliant that that Norwich can wear off the offers of clubs like Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal aren't doing great this season, but they are still a big, big club in England, and to wear off offers from them is very impressive, and it's very refreshing to see as a fan myself, just like making sure that we can keep hold of our best players for the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's obviously any kind of team that doesn't find themselves in the top tier of any league, but playing with good quality will always risk other teams from higher divisions coming in, not necessarily offering them more money, just offering them more opportunity. Now, the thing that you've got to bear in mind with a club like Arsenal, yes, okay, everyone has seen that they went through this little rough patch. Ironically, now they are obviously swinging that back round. And everyone does kind of still go on about Arsenal having relegation form and that kind of thing. They're swinging it round, but they also compete in Europe. That's something that a team in the Championship cannot offer a player. A team in the Championship cannot offer a player a chance to compete in European football. They can't offer them a chance to compete against some of the best players in the world, which do play in the Premier League. They don't offer them the chance to play against teams such as Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, Manchester United, Tottenham, Arsenal, for whichever team they do sign for. I mean, let's be frank, Fulham are not one of the best teams in the Premier League, so I'm just going to get that little dig at Eden right there. They have stinky players, but quite frankly, playing in the Premier League is what is going to be on a player's mind. And if they are tempted away, whether that be for less money, whether it be for equal money, usually it's more money, that's a temptation to leave. Obviously, there's only so much a manager and a board can do. If a player's agent gets involved and starts pushing through, this is from any deal. This is now me just talking generically. We're not talking about certain deals. Generically, if an agent gets involved, an agent will get as much done as he can. If not, he'll stir the pot, and he'll make people unsettled. But then the kind of interesting thing is you have to look at the current contract. And this is where I'm going to swing round from talking about Doeke's situation to talking about, for me, the biggest talking point in the whole of Championship to do with transfers. And that is the starlet Michael Elise. I would go as far to say that he has got to be the biggest talking point going into this window. People cannot stop talking about him. The fact of the matter is, the guy has just turned 19 years old. He is performing to such a level, quite frankly, at times, carrying Reading to results, who, I will say it again, are not a promotion contending squad or team. And they are getting results that they should not be getting. Michael Elise is doing enough for this team to warrant the interest that he has. It's been reported by The Athletic and it's been reported by Sky Sports that there is a release clause in his contract. And at that point, the club can't do a thing. All Reading can do at the moment is turn around to Michael Elise and offer him a short-term deal with either a higher release clause and offer him more wages for the short term, or do something to try and convince him to stay. But if another club wants him, Crystal Palace are linked with him, Leeds are linked with him, Arsenal want him, Liverpool want him, City want him, Real want him, Barca want him, AC Milan want him. There are clubs that want him. And if this rumoured £8 million is true, that's what The Athletic have said. Sky Sports have said it's slightly more. Veljko Paunovic has said that he doesn't know of a clause that exists. But he is one of the hottest prospects right now. And even if he did go to a team in the top division, which I back him to do, he won't start necessarily straight away. I think he
won't start in those top teams. No way.
He'd likely would get loaned back to us or get loaned out to a team. And he is a long-term project, ultimately.
Yeah, I think with Michael Elise, just to add on this, obviously, he is obviously your biggest upcoming future talent. And I think he's either going to leave this window or next window. I think what could be positive for you guys is that the £8 million release clause is paid now. You have money for January to buy a replacement, but he gets loaned back to you. And I think if you have him for that second half of the season, push for that promotion, then in the summer, you've done your scouting because you've had that money since January. You've done a fair bit of research into who the replacement is going to be. And if you get promoted in at the end of the season, which is likely, I mean, obviously you've said it, you're not maybe a promotion side, maybe you are overachieving, but at the same time, you are fourth in the league and you are in real contention to go up. So if you do go up, you then have £8 million to play with to buy player. Obviously, Michael Elise could easily go for about 20 million, I'd say. Yeah, I'd say definitely if you get your money for January, but he gets loaned back to you, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm just, again, a little bit of a kind of controversial opinion. I think he's worth more than £20 million if you have to look at talent like him that has gone out of the Championship. Eze went for 20 million. Michael Elise is night and day a better player than Ebe Eze.
Yeah, I said that about Emi Buendia to Kitman Benj of Imperial Wolf, who is obviously a Crystal Palace fan, and he did not like that comment. He did not like it at all. But
see, I've seen Eze play in the flesh. I've seen him for QPR. I don't think he's a bad player.
No,
he's that couple of years older than Elise, but I think Elise, especially this season, has proven why he's getting people watching him. Actually, I think the thing that people don't necessarily also realise about Michael Elise, I know a lot of Reading fans didn't really realise it straight away. He's of French nationality and is obviously going through the same French youth system as so many superstars that we've seen over the years that have gone into the French national side, because they are one of the best national sides to have competed in European football and in world football. He's going through that same system. He's getting to play with some of these players that you've got to look at and look at where they are. If you look at some of the young French players and French talent that already exist, if he's in the same team as them, all he's going to do is grow. He's got that extra bit of growth, I think, on Eze, and that's what I kind of stand to him having more of a value, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's similar with Emi Buendia. Obviously, I said he's a lot better than Eze as well, and Palace fans won't like that comment, but at the same time, if you look at Buendia's stats over the past 3 seasons, he's been at Norwich are monumental. You know, he had the second most chances created in the Premier League last season for a team that finished bottom. The only two players that had more chances created were Trent and Kevin De Bruyne, and I think that says it all. But yes, those are the big sort of transfer rumours leaving this summer. Obviously, you've got Omar Richards for your team as well, who is rumoured to leave. So yeah, it's very, very interesting times. Obviously, Norwich have actually announced that they're not going to be selling any of their big players, which is interesting, and it does kind of mean that I think they will now go and absolutely walk the league in the second half of the season. If they're not selling their best players, we've already announced we're going to be signing players. I think we will HMS piss the league.
I have got a quick question for both of you though. For like the future of transfers, because of like Brexit and everything, like you were saying about overseas talent, if they're under 18, Premier League sides and things like that as well, and Championship sides won't be able to sign them until they're 18 years old.
Yeah, that is an interesting subject, because Norwich have done that with Sebastian Soto. We bought Sebastian, I think he's 17. I don't know how old he is, but I know he hasn't got a work permit. And I don't know whether that's due to Brexit or whatnot, but he's an American international. He's played for the American national team as well. Played alongside, obviously, Pulisic and players like that. However, he hasn't got his work permit at the minute, and he's now been loaned. He played in Germany. I think I can't remember if it was either Wolfsburg or Werder Bremen. I can't remember. If there's any German football fans in watching this video, please comment down below. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so he's now loaned out to a team in Holland. I think it's Telstar, and he would have been probably our third choice striker, but because he hasn't got a work permit, we can't do anything about that. So it's very strange, yeah. And I think with the whole Brexit thing, it will kind of maybe affect Championship clubs, especially because Championship clubs do like signing players who are obviously 18 and are under. Obviously, Josh, you've had Michael Elise for a few seasons now as well, so you would have picked him up.
He's a little product.
Product.
Former Manchester City, I believe, but we've had him for a number of years.
But yeah, like you say, because he's obviously, you say, French, with this whole Brexit thing, if you were to buy him now from a French side, let's say, for example, you wouldn't be able to pick him up. So it is strange, and I think it will affect Championship clubs, Eden, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think my kind of standpoint on this, and I mean, feel free, obviously, to add your own input on this afterwards, Eden. I can actually now see clubs trying to find loopholes in kind of the legislation. So, I think there'll be teams that will sign a player, similar to what Doeke has just explained, but then they'll loan them out until they're 18 when they can then get a work permit.
Yeah.
Or what I think might become a lot more of a popular thing, and we've seen this happen. This has been going on for years now for multiple clubs, and a prime example is the City Football Group. I think a lot more partnerships will be formed between teams from the UK to teams in Europe and further afield. I think you can see kind of like City have got partner clubs, and you'll see the players being moved around like pieces on a chessboard. I think the main example that I can give off the top of my head is there was a transfer going between Red Bull Salzburg to Red Bull Leipzig. Szoboszlai, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah, Szoboszlai, yeah.
Szoboszlai. He has obviously been moved from one club under the Red Bull brand to another.
Yeah.
That's, I think, going to be the easiest way that clubs are going to try and get around this, because ultimately they're going to want the talent. If they identify it, they're going to want it. And for English leagues to remain competitive and try and stay as good as they are, I think they are going to have to resort to something like that, being moving players to a team. Say they pick them up at 16. They identify them as the talent that they want as a long-term thing. They'll move them to the team that they've got playing in the third division of German football. When they turn 18, they move into the UK. They get them a work permit. They join the academy. They join the under-23 setup. If they're good enough, they go straight into the first team, kind of the bottom end, and then work their way to be a starter. That's how I personally think teams are going to have to go about things.
What do you think about more young talent from here, instead actually just coming through the academy from from like 5, 6 like onwards, kind of going
Yeah, I
up.
think with Norwich is definitely something that we've been doing already, and I think we've seen so many homegrown talents come through the Norwich Academy, especially recently. Obviously, Todd Cantwell's been at the club since he was 6. The Dereham Deco, they call him. Dereham's just a town outside of Norwich. He's a local lad. Max Aaron's obviously another academy product. Jamal Lewis obviously now moved on to Newcastle. Ben Godfrey wasn't an academy product; was bought from York when he was 16 or 15, and has been with the academy ever since. And now he's off to Everton. So many academy products that we've had come through, and really done well. Jacob and Josh Murphy is another one. Obviously, Josh Murphy's now at Cardiff, and Jacob Murphy's now at Newcastle. But they were academy products. They were local lads as well, and it's really, really interesting because Norwich have done this for so many years and used homegrown talents, utilised their academies, and I think we're going to see a lot more English talent actually coming into the Premier League, because I think that has been kind of something that has been missing. We haven't seen as many young English talents that really, take a shine on the world since Harry Kane, really, if I'm honest with you. I think Harry Kane was the last player, for me, the last player to really take the stage.
I wouldn't agree with that. You got other players. I think maybe not. They're not as good as Harry Kane.
Yeah,
but we still had a lot of good English players come through.
I'd agree, but I don't think to the world-class level that Harry Kane is. And I think we do miss that. We do, when Wayne Rooney stepped on the scene, it was incredible. And then Harry Kane, even Raheem Sterling, you could see he was world-class. I mean, Jadon Sancho, okay, maybe I was wrong, Jadon Sancho, but he done it abroad, didn't do it in the Premier League.
You got Arnold as well.
Yeah, Trent Alexander-Arnold, yeah. I mean, there's players there, but I think you need to see more of it. You need to see more world-class talent breaking through into the Premier League. And I think maybe the Brexit deal will do that, because it does then acquire Premier League teams and Championship teams to utilise their academy and their homegrown talent a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll continue my kind of theme, and it's talking about what I know best, and ultimately that is, unfortunately, Reading Football Club. Since the academy was formed in 1999, we've had 53 of our academy graduates start for first team, or like make an appearance, in essence. We've also had a number of academy graduates named as unused substitutes over the course of league games, cup games, the lot. We've had players that have then gone on to bigger and better things. I mean, the most notable one that comes to head straight away, we've got a former goalkeeper who came through the academy, Mikael Anderson, who actually now plays for FC Midtjylland, who were drawn in Liverpool's group in the Champions League, and I believe he's their starting goalkeeper. So things like the academy, as we've said, and I mean, a lot of academies kind of are focused on differently by clubs, but I do think we're going to see a big shift in focus towards investing in academies. Not only that, but kind of how can they nurture the talent, because ultimately first team experience is going to be what's going to benefit. And it could be a case of a lot of teams look to bring academy talent into the first team, and then they loan them straight down to League 1 and 2. And I think for them, in terms, especially with the wage caps coming in, I think that's going to be huge for League 1 and 2, is looking at loaning players from the higher divisions. I think ultimately you're going to look at a lot of change happening, but I think for me it's in too much of an infancy stage to really go, this is exactly what I think is going to happen. It's so tough to call.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Anyway, we'll move on to, I think, the main confirmed transfer so far, and it's regarding Watford, and that is Etienne Capoue leaving for a very small fee. I think it's 1.5 million, which is criminal, because the player is Premier League quality, but it may be down to his contract, his age. Again, he's not the youngest anymore. I believe he's now 30. Well, I think around that sort of age, around 30. So obviously that comes into play with it, with the transfer being too small. I think another thing, maybe the new manager, Munoz, does not maybe like his style of play. Obviously, Munoz was described as an attacking manager, and we did see that against Norwich. Didn't watch their game versus Swansea at the weekend, but caught the highlights. And I will be watching Ben Foster's YouTube video later to see Jamal Lowe's celebration. But it's the whole Etienne Capoue thing is very interesting, because he's probably worth around 5 million at his age. Maybe he's not got long left in his contract, but I think 1.5 million is an absolute bargain. Obviously, it wasn't an English club that bought him; it was a French club. I think it was Metz. And yeah, I think Watford fans will be very, very disappointed. I know how much Tom, our new social media manager, speaks highly of Etienne Capoue when he was at Watford. He was their best player at times. And yeah, I think it'll be a big miss for the club. And does that now hinder Watford's promotion chances? Obviously, losing such a big player for such a small fee as well, does that hinder their chances? Josh, what are your thoughts, mate?
It's a very, very big loss for them. And I mean, I'm just trying to find out I'm looking for a little bit more information now. Like you said, I believe it was in the region of 1.5 million. And like I completely agree. For a player of his standard, yes, okay, contractual situation with the club, that's criminal. He is worth so much more than that. He's a very good player. But I don't think it's going to hinder Watford too much going forward, just because he obviously was out of the squad for a little bit at the start of the season, with him rumoured to be leaving in the summer. Then I believe he was one of the players that contracted coronavirus. So he's only kind of been in and out of the squad anyway. I think Watford have the quality and kind of strength in depth almost to kick on anyway. But I don't think they're going to kind of rue the loss too much in the short term. But overall, it's a huge loss for them. I think they're going to kind of just have to kind of bat it to the side for now. But going forward, I think you need to consider it's a big loss for them. And he is a Premier League quality player, quite frankly. And he, I think, will go and do very, very well for Villarreal.
Oh, it's a Villarreal he's gone for, not Metz. Sorry, I must have been confused. My bad. Spanish team, not a French team. My mistake. But yeah, anything to add?
Not really, to be honest.
No, all about Fulham, aren't you? But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching the podcast or listening to it if you are listening on Spotify. Remember to like, subscribe, comment what you want us to talk about in upcoming videos.
Tickle the bell.
And tickle the notification bell, as always. And we'll see you guys later.
And just on that, I hope you've all had a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And now, I know I am. I'm going to go watch Boris and be sat there nervous as to what he's going to make us do next. Yeah. Take care, everyone, and we'll catch you again very soon.
See you later, guys.